Tuesday morning, some 20 organizations headed by the AFL CIO will be marching in protest of President Reagan's economic policies. That march will start here at the Northeast High School. And it'll end here on the steps of the Capitol, where the president will be inside addressing a joint session of the legislature. I believe we'll win the ERA. Several of the groups protesting have been here before. The National Organization of Women and other backers of the ERA have rallied with their hearts as well as their voices on the Capitol steps. This time they'll be using their feet to march for their cause. On occasion, they've been joined by UAW members, angered by numerous layoffs. Tuesday, the UAW and the ERA supporters will stand together again. They'll be joined by a dozen other groups that want to air their disapproval of Reaganomics, even if the president doesn't listen.
We may not accomplish anything, but we will be able to let President Reagan know and his administration know that all of Oklahoma is not behind his budget cuts and Reaganomics, that there's a great many people that are unhappy in Oklahoma.
Johnson says even if they don't accomplish anything, the protest will at least allow the participants to march off their frustrations. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Oh, Mike, look, he's got red hair.
He does, Linda. He just decided to come out and see us.
Oh, he's not very happy.
Well, yeah, he's kind of happy. He's got nice little fingernails. Good grip.
He's got a good grip?
Yeah, he's got a good grip. Good, solid grip.
If you want to eat, you better open up your mouth.
Here, in here. My wife said, stick the baby book out.
Oh, well.
That's what
Yeah, we look at that.
getting in some warm cover.
Nah, he'll be oh.
I'll try to get your gown cleaned up later.
Oh, don't worry about it. Say hello. You're going to take Bob Berry's job. Aren't you? Smile at the camera so you can take Bob Berry's job. There you go.
That's good.
Give him some scores. Look at his long fingernails. Those are big.
"17-year-old Tamara Denise Carter disappeared from a Moore Cleaners where she worked late Saturday. A pool of blood suggested foul play, and later the next day she was found northeast of Norman lying in a creek bed. She had been murdered. At first, Moore police speculated the killing was connected to two other unsolved murders, one going back 2 years. But today, they say they don't have any definite link.
At the present time, the detectives are still conducting a background investigation, checking on all of her friends, past associates, somebody that she might have previously dated. At this time, there's no concrete evidence to connect this homicide with any of our other unsolved homicides. And also at the present time, we have no definite suspects in mind.
Although the evidence to link the three murders just isn't there at this time, police are not ruling out the possibility that the same suspect committed all three. Ted Brown, Action 4 and more.
We won't be able to make that decision really until probably Monday or even early Tuesday. Depends on what happens between now and then, how his clinical course is, how he feels, what his laboratory tests look like, and so forth.
Richard Crisp told reporters this afternoon that Oklahoma has some of the best liquor laws and some of the worst. He says the state alcohol retail stores are probably the best run in the country, but he says he is tired of the state's hypocritical open saloon laws.
This is an impossible situation. As I said previously in the news release, that my convictions will not allow me to be to be a part of any further hypocrisy. To say that we do not have liquor by the drink, when it's just absolutely flagrant all over the state of Oklahoma, in my view, is hypocritical.
Crisp has talked of resigning before. John Reed, Governor Nigh's press secretary, says the governor has been pleased with the director's service.
He has performed well in a most difficult assignment as director of the ABC board. When I first became governor, Mr. Crisp offered to submit his resignation as courtesy to the new incoming governor. During the past 3 years, I have discussed the possibilities of his leaving the post on 2 or 3 occasions at his request. This departure is at his own will.
The 1st of next month, Crisp will assume a post with the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States. His responsibilities will be to head lobbying efforts across the country. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the ABC Board.
High taxes and inflation, meanwhile, undermined the incentive to work or save. Quick deals became safer than long-term economy-building projects. Oklahoma's state motto, labor conquers all things, is right on target. Yet in the last 2 decades, the last thing our system encouraged was labor progress, and progress ground to a halt. We couldn't have stayed on the path we were on. You know it, and I know it. With some fine bipartisan cooperation in the Congress, including most of Oklahoma's congressional delegation, we've charted a course that will lead to a better life for all Americans. I know how frustrating these times are for so many who are living right on the ragged edge. I grew up in a family in the Great Depression that felt the pain of economic downturns. I saw what unemployment at that time did to my own father. Today, all of us must remain conscious of the suffering behind the statistics. This realization should give us the resolve to get to the heart of our economic ills. Clearly, unemployment remains far too high in too much of the country. Not here. Returning America to steady economic growth is the answer, not quick fixes. And that's what our program is all about. And it will work if we give it time to take hold. Those who sincerely doubt that states have the capability to reassume their rightful role often point to incidents or mistakes or corruption uncovered at the state level. Well, I suggest that such disclosures and subsequent corrections are evidence that the system is working. When all you're hearing is good news, that's the time you should start to worry and wonder.
The The president was only running a few minutes behind schedule when he left the state capitol, but instead of heading for Tinker Air Force Base, his caravan returned to the Skirvin Hotel. Rumor was Mr. Reagan was going to make a detour before returning to Washington. The White House press corps also returned to the hotel, while presidential advisors mapped out their plan of action. The restless crowd outside the Skirvin had to wait 2 more hours before they could catch another glimpse of the chief executive. President Reagan had sent his Deputy Chief of Staff Michael Deaver to Fort Wayne, Indiana, to survey damage caused by recent floods. Deaver's job was to find out if it was feasible for the president to visit Indiana on his way back to Washington. With Deaver's report that the coast was clear, the presidential motorcade headed for Tinker and the waiting Air Force One. President Reagan wasted no time at Tinker. He shook a few hands, waved to the small crowd of onlookers, then boarded his executive jet for the hour and 45-minute flight to Fort Wayne. Mr. Reagan left Oklahoma saying the Sooner State exemplifies the spirit that can turn the country around through his new federalism program. The president hopes to find a similar spirit in the other 49 states. Scott Wallace, Action 4, with the president at Tinker Air Force Base.
Actually, it's a poor way to get caught up on paperwork, but anybody who is, say, in an office finds himself getting swamped with paperwork and further behind. And I've had a great deal of time to read a lot of annual reports that agencies have sent me and update on the water conditions in the state of Oklahoma, things that I many times don't have time to read, and so I've done a lot of that.
And we're waiting for any kind of lead. Anyone might think they may be in any of the buildings or anything. We are checking all these, and we've got units out patrolling. Last known, they were on foot. What they are right now, we don't know. They, one has been for a grand auto, so he could get a vehicle very easily. Weapon-wise, we anticipate them to pick up weapons at some given point because they're possibly looking at the death penalties on the homicides.
Oklahoma City bus riders will be transferring from bus to bus a different way if mass trans officials get the go-ahead. Currently, all city buses drive to a central location at least once an hour, where passengers can transfer to another bus. Drivers wait a while to make sure everyone who is waiting to transfer won't miss their bus. A new mass trans proposal would eliminate the central stop downtown. Instead, all bus routes would intersect each other, at which point riders can change buses. In addition, at least 20 more buses will be put on the street during non-peak hours, and current bus routes will be extended. We asked the company spokesperson if all the changes are supposed to improve the company's poor reputation for bus service.
making the buses more timely, where you don't have to wait as long for a bus. If you miss one, having to wait maybe 30 minutes and stuff like that will help to improve it drastically. Also, not having to get off and do as much transferring as, like other people have been used to doing. They can ride their same bus and go to other sides of towns without having to get off their original bus. It'll help to improve it a lot.
Mass trans officials are still waiting for final approval on the transfer plan. They do expect that some riders will be disappointed with the new policy, but their main concern is putting more buses on the road to cut down the time the riders have to wait for a transfer, while at the same time keeping down costs too. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
We have about 3,000 youngsters involved in the show, and we'll have, we had over 1,200 lambs. We'll have over 2,000 bears and about 1,000 steers and heifers.
Now,
so it is big.
It is. It's the world's largest junior livestock show, and that means for 4-H and FFA youngsters. And then you said about 3,000 youngsters. Now, that doesn't include all the people that come just to see the show.
It appears that there's about 2 parents or 2 helpers for every child, so we have a big crowd out there.
Protesters swarmed the steps of the Capitol during the president's visit. Some of the protesters were state government employees. The charge now leveled by the Republican state chairman is those government employees protested illegally. Nancy Apgar says that as government employees, they have no right to protest. She faults Governor Nigh for allowing the employees to do so.
I've had a number of calls from people who said they saw many state employees out there. And I understand that they were away from their desks, and many of them returned to their desks. My concern is just that the same concern probably that the taxpayers have, that we were actually paying them to do their day's work when in fact they were out protesting. My problem is with the fact that the governor doesn't appear to be running a very tight ship. And what I am concerned about is how and where our tax dollars are being spent.
At this morning's press conference, Governor Nigh called Apgar a hired gunman because of her allegations. His press secretary, John Reed, says state government employees do have limited rights to protest, and that it's not the governor's responsibility to play employee watchdog.
He is head of the executive branch, but the guidelines are already out concerning what an employee can and cannot do. So, and although he is the chief executive of the state of Oklahoma, it's his job. He in no way can one man watch over everything.
This copy of Oklahoma statutes clearly defines the political rights of state public employees. It notes that any employee can in fact protest, providing it's not on state time and providing that the employee is not doing so with a political party. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Ten-year-old Jennifer Miller was reported missing about 5:30 yesterday evening. She was last seen playing with her friends near this spillway behind her home on North Edinburgh. Police were notified and joined with neighbors, searching the entire area, concentrating their efforts on a small canal that runs through the subdivision. About 1:30 this afternoon, the firefighters' skin diving team was called in to check the area below the spillway.
She's out there.
If she's out there.
As concerned neighbors watched from above, the rescue team entered the water. After a few short moments, they found the body of little Jennifer Miller. She was on the bottom of the creek in about 8 feet of water.
Authorities say it appears Jennifer had been playing on the spillway, slipped and fell, possibly hitting her head on the way down. Parents in the area are upset about today's tragedy and say something needs to be done to make the creek area safe.
I think it's dangerous, and it's bad for children this age especially, and even the big ones. They tell me that when it's in the wintertime when there's ice, they slide down that embankment onto the ice, and I think they slide down it into the water too.
What would you suggest doing?
Well, a fence, something, or the parents telling the children that they can't be in that area.
It's unfortunate that it sometimes takes a tragedy to get the public involved in correcting a potentially dangerous situation, but hopefully this one will be changed.
Support in the last few days, but the vote
Only 2 months ago, the Equal Rights Amendment was dealt a death blow in the Oklahoma Senate. Only a handful of votes kept the controversial amendment from passage. ERA supporters, disappointed by its defeat, dropped a banner from the Senate gallery as if to say the ERA will not go away. Those same ERA supporters will be back in the galleries for the next 100 days, this time holding a silent vigil about an issue they have been very vocal about. Ruth Adams of the ERA Countdown campaign called a news conference today to say the next 100 days are crucial. She says she has heard about movement within some Senate circles that some members felt they made a mistake by voting against the amendment and would now vote for it. Backing her statements was a group of Oklahoma women, each wearing green banners depicting the 15 states that have not passed the ERA. All it would take for passage would be 3 more. Ruth Adams sees no reason Oklahoma couldn't be one of them.
We're finding even yet that the majority of Oklahomans, like the majority of Americans, believe this is the right thing to do. And as we've worked throughout the state, even since the day that the vote in the Senate was not in our favor, we continue to find new supporters, new reasons to be working, and it encourages us even more every time we hear women tell their stories of discrimination. And they come to us and they say, please keep on working in our behalf.
The ERA supporters will be holding a silent vigil on the south steps of the Capitol for the next 100 days or until the ERA is passed. That may be unlikely, given the defeat before, but they say they'll ask Governor Nigh to call a special session if that doesn't work and see if it'll pass then. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Tulsa's nearest four-year state university is 70 miles away. The Tulsa congressional delegation and Tulsa residents have been lobbying for a university most of this session, but a House Higher Education Committee failed to pass the measure to the full House by yesterday's deadline. The ralliers said they will continue their efforts until they've reached their goal. But some Langston University alumni and supporters are afraid a university in Tulsa would hurt Langston, and state regents have an agreement with the Federal Department of Education to leave Langston intact.
We agreed in the same document that we would evaluate the effect of that new mission for Langston University in November of 1982. And after the evaluation and consultation with the officials of the Office of Civil Rights, then we'd be ready to make recommendations on what we should do for the future of Langston University and all of higher education in Oklahoma as it pertains to compliance with civil rights.
Since the deadline is passed for bills to be passed out of committee, nothing will be done about a state university in Tulsa this year. State regents say they are still committed to Langston University, and so when a university is built in Tulsa, it will complement Langston, not compete with it. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the state capitol. Equal Rights Amendment was a sensitive and volatile issue at the state capitol this year. Its defeat in the state Senate stung amendment supporters who vowed to continue the fight. After the vote, the ERA Countdown campaign conducted surveys to support their belief that most Oklahomans favored the amendment. Many surveys were conducted by state universities, and campaign chair Ruth Adams says they paid for the surveys with private funds. But Senator Paul Tollifer of Lawton, who voted against the ERA, says that if they paid the bills, they skipped the one for his district conducted by Cameron College, and he doesn't think that's right.
I feel like that those folks are the one to be responsible for those and not the taxpayers of the state of Oklahoma. This is all that I want done, is that them pay for those expenses, and then we'll go on. But I do not feel that it's fair that a poll be conducted on especially a controversial issue like the Equal Rights Amendment, for the pro-people to use institutions that are conducted and operated through the taxpayers' money.
A spokesman for the ERA Countdown campaign says they haven't paid for the Cameron service yet because they haven't been billed for it. Senator Tollifer says he'll make it a point to find out what the survey cost the state, and he'll see to it that the bill is passed on. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the state capitol.
If we would have disclosed what we would have known early, it would have most likely jeopardized the prosecution of over 200 individuals. I think it's important to realize, though, that this opinion was simply in response to a question about a particular law. And the law is much more complex than that. And I find it difficult to believe that state law taken as a whole would require our office to jeopardize the prosecution of wrongdoing in county government.